Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of AEO Anecdotes, Excerpts, and Origins. I am your host Rohan, and thank you for listening. Before we get into today's episode, if you have not yet subscribed or followed the podcast, please do consider doing so. Now, I have been away for a while with other things taking center stage, but AEO is finally back with another episode. Like always, today's guest is also very special. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Indraneel Chitale to AEO. Hello, Indraneel Dada, and thank you for joining me.
Hi Rohan, how are you? Glad to be part of this podcast.
The pleasure is all mine. I am doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. Now, just a brief introduction about Indraneel Dada. Now, he is a fourth generation partner at 81-year-old Chitale Group, having studied electronics and telecommunication engineering at the Vishwakarma Institute of Technology. He joined the family business full-time from the year 2011. He is pursuing his executive MBA at Harvard Business School in Boston. Over the years, he has handled multiple roles in Chitale Group that includes manufacturing, operations, supply chain, data management, and MIS. Along with working in the business, he has also co-founded Herbie, a startup aimed at making Ayurveda accessible. He is also an angel investor in multiple startups. Now, without further ado, I would like to commence our discussion with a topic which is very synonymous to the theme of this podcast and ask you a little bit about your origin story. Being born into a family with a successful business spanning generations, was getting into it on a full-time basis always the plan? Or did you have any other ambitions based on the education that you sought?
So I think I would say there was never doubt in my mind about whether I want to join the business or not. It was pretty sure that whenever I want to, I will join the business and I'll give whatever I can to make take this from the level that it is and add value to it and build something better out of it. So no doubt on that front. And I think due credit to the family, where at least when I got into the business, I had an avenue to do something about it, and not just slog my way doing donkey work. So now, of course, there have been days where nothing has happened, but then there has been days where I have had to do something which is class apart or groundbreaking or something that is innovating. So the ecosystem was created where I could thrive with this intent.
So it made sense for you to implement all the learnings that you have acquired over your education in the business along with a few
Add my bit into the big picture that this family business is.
yeah, right, exactly. Now, talking about your family business, now I'd like to talk about your family business. First of all, what category would you classify the business of Chitale as? Can it be called an FMCG sector business, or would you like to identify Chitale as a different sector altogether, maybe like a mithai sector, if you would like to make that a thing?
So we are a food company, right? We sell a commodity like milk. We sell mithai, we sell namkeens, we sell healthy products which are sugar free or keto friendly or vegan friendly. We are making breakfast food. We are making meals. We are making bars and namkeen snacking category, that's rupees 5 to 10 into the category as well. So the aim is that whatever the food people consume around us on this planet, we want to be part of every food sector. While doing that, we want to hold our Indian heritage and make products which appeal globally but have that Indian tradition inside. So we are a food company that's making Indian food accessible globally. So the thing is that you can't really have a category that is so well restricted in the time to come. The channel has to be omni-channel. So FMCG is part of our business. Commodity food sell product is part of our business. Value addition nutrient based food is part of our business. Celebration food is part of our business. So we do different foods that appeal to different categories at different time of the day, at different time of the season of the year, and for different spectrums of the society. So that way, our job is making food. Where it gets sold and what channel it goes is part of the process.
So, calling yourself a food company, you are giving yourself an option to not only be a part of the FMCG sector but also create your own sector and offer way more offerings than limiting yourself just to either of those sectors. Right now, I'd like to ask you what do you think are some of the cornerstones of your business as a food company? And if I would specifically ask about the FMCG part of your business.
So we are a family business. We are an 82-year-old company. This was something that my great grandfather started as a startup back then in pre-independence India, and that's now become a mature company where we have multiple levels and multiple zones of operations. And what has stood the test of time is one is quality, the other is the constant chasing for innovation and technology upgradation. The third would be the obsession about keeping the consumer happy. So it's a pyramid where these are probably three foundations of the triangle, and that is something that builds together to build this brand, and that is what we carry and wish to pass on to the next generation.
Right, like you said, your great grandfather started this business in an era where startup was not even defined. And for you to stand the test of time and effectively build these three pillars as the cornerstones of your business, that is something truly, truly remarkable. Now, if I were to ask, what do you think are some of the shortfalls in that business? And let's say you were given all the resources and the capital in the world and told to disrupt it. How will you plan on the disruption?
So let's probably take a step back and go beyond the aspect of disrupting for the sake of disrupting. The biggest challenge right now is that there is a huge disparity in the way food is consumed on this planet. So, just our own country has a 40% population that is malnourished. So, that can be a major chunk of it is undernourished. There is a smaller chunk of it which is, overnourished. So, this itself is a disparity that we need to address because what we are consuming is not the best thing. So, if we want to really create disruption, let's try to make food accessible at a price point where multiple sections of the society, in a society as complex as India, can access nutrition. So, access to nutrition is going to be the big defining change in this decade, where it's not simply about creating food for the sake of it, but getting value out of the food. And that is something that I see is a big chance for disruption. That is what we want to try and do, which is why you see that we are building a portfolio where we have a 5 rupee, 10 rupee product, but we are probably healthier than what is there in the market at that price point. We have a ketogenic friendly or a zero sugar or a vegan friendly or a lactose intolerant friendly food product, which is not cheap, but it is there. So these spectrums going in from as cheap as 10 rupees, going up to something like cost 2000 rupees a kg product, we have different options. And that way, what we want to try and do is that at these options, whenever we are consumed as a product, we need to create value for the consumer. And if there is value, then there is a repeat demand. Whenever there is a repeat demand, that has a chance for exponential scale up. And when something exponentially happens, that is when disruption happens. So that is what I believe, or that is what we have to try and create every day.
So you're a firm believer of not disrupting for the sake of disrupting, but ensuring that disruption comes with an element of value that you create. And obviously, given the years that this business has been in existence and will be also, the way of doing business must have changed after a certain point of time, and that must have come at a point where you had to bring in innovation as a part of your business. Right, so talking about the innovation, the consumers have always seen Chitale as this traditional icon of sorts for generations.
Yeah.
So, how do you want them to perceive this brand as this innovation friendly enterprise?
So we'll keep innovating what we do, right? And there will always be an improvement because we have that obsession about improvement. And as a consumer-focused brand, that's part of our recipe. But what exactly will we do and what exactly we will not do is something that the consumer needs to know very well. So we'll never touch meat.
Okay.
We'll never touch anything that is going to be religiously sensitive.
Okay.
We will avoid doing something that is controversial. We will try to do it in a manner where there is a social impact to what we do.
Okay.
So, just like how we are doing contract farming for our masala, or we are working with our farmers to supply milk to our factories. So, the impact of what we try to do has to be across the ecosystem where our suppliers benefit our employees benefit, and our customers benefit. And when all three benefit, that is when an enterprise becomes successful in a country like India. And if that is successful and that is something that you are able to keep generating each and every time, then this is something that stands the test of time. So our consumers will keep seeing us do various things at various ways and various places where these factors are safeguarded. And if that is safeguarded, then we will keep being relevant on it.
So that is how you would, that will how, sorry, once again. The public will then look at you as this innovation friendly enterprise with
a social awareness.
Right.
About what we want to drive.
Right. So ensuring that you always create a social impact with every step of the business you take.
Okay.
That way, the public's perception of your business will also improve.
And we need to understand, right? So when we are doing food, which is something like mithai, for example, such a celebratory thing. But then along with that, there are so many sentiments where, say, just to give you a case on this example, when we were trying to make modak,
right,
we imported a machine from Brazil to make that.
Okay.
And we were having a hard time getting that tip at the top. Those guys were like, why do you want to be so obsessed with this? We told them that, it's not about us replacing people, it's about us supplying to volumes. But while doing that, we need to understand that the modak is something that is offered as a religious, prasad.
Right.
Or a very religious offering towards the gods, with people having so much belief and spirit and emotions into it. If you are distorting with that, then that's really dangerous territory to be playing in. So we will innovate the process, we will innovate the way it's being made, we will innovate the recipe, we will innovate the ingredients probably, but we will not innovate something that is going to disrupt something or hurt sentiments.
Right, and something like the tip itself is,
that's like the COVID
right,
for a modak, right?
Right, it is the parallel of the star on a Christmas tree in our religion. So I can understand that point of view as well. Now,
but can we do a healthy, sugar-free ukdicha modak, which is steamed, and essentially it is a gluten-free product? That just changes the appeal.
Right. It will.
So we will do that. We will try to innovate that. We'll try to make it more value addition or value creating while doing that. But we will probably not disturb something that changes the balance of the society as well.
Right.
And that is what enterprises have to safeguard.
Right. Now, I had this question kept for later, but since you brought it up, I would just like to throw some light upon that. You mentioned that you had imported a machine from Brazil to make something that is a local religious prasad and offering for us. Now, how hard was it to calibrate that machine that you have imported, and so that it will match the taste and the quality of the food product that you make? And do you see a future where your made in India machinery can be used to make in India while maintaining the same quality?
So let's not bring the geographical aspect into this at all. These machines, if they are solving problems, whether they are made in India or whether they are made in Brazil or whether they are made in Germany or Australia, doesn't really matter. Yeah, of course, if they are made in Pakistan, we'll never buy them. But that's just because we have strong patriotic values coming in. This is just because yesterday there was a tweet about us selling products there, or whether we want to do that or not. So we'll never do that. But if it's solving a problem, if it's making something better than what we are doing today, then we have to spend time and invest and do that. So of course, when this was a cookie depositor. It was making cookies. We had to adopt that. So that meant that we had to change the way our cooking process happened.
Right.
That meant we had to make sure that every time the cooked output used to be the same. So if you are making 16 vessels with 16 different people having 16 different outputs, we had to make sure that 16 was funneled into one.
Right.
So that meant we had to backward integrate towards creating a standardized input for this machine to have a standardized output.
Right.
So that meant probably changing the cooking process also. So we did that. But that is how we will do it, rather than that led to a productivity increase or a volume increase. Where now modak, which is like a 10-day item, where Ganpati is just 10 days.
Right.
So people will not buy modak after Ganesh Chaturdashi is done.
Right.
They want it before that.
Correct.
So for just that 10-day bulk up, we can now make modak much later and give much fresher product.
Right.
And actually sell our product from Australia to US.
Makes sense.
This would have never been possible had it been made manually by hand, because those guys just get tired of pressing in and out, pressing in and out.
Right. And as you expanded globally, it was not. I mean, you had to at some point make the shift from labor intensive to capital
So
intensive.
then there was, the effort had its rewards. That's why, of course, nothing was easy. And Brazilians understanding what the motor is was itself the challenge. So we started with ricotta cheese because they didn't even know what kova is.
Right.
So it started with that, and then it progressed. But then that is the effort we put in. But that's why we sell so much modak. Nobody else in the country does that much modak.
Right. So now moving on to the next question which I had. Now you mentioned that for you to reach a modak in a machine which was imported from a different country, you had to start with the concept of ricotta cheese to reach that output. Now, without revealing too much of your trade secrets, can you just give me a walkthrough of a product right from its conceptualization to hitting the shelves of stores? How does the process go through?
Sure, if it's a product that doesn't exist on paper, normally this is something that the R&D will get a brief of. So let me talk about Binge Bar.
Okay.
It's a new product. This is a completely new way of consuming snacks, right? So I came up with the idea that so we had a laddu machine, and that was doing injection molding to make laddus. So one time when we were doing trials, we ran short of material, so we tried to make a chiuda laddu just to see that it's not getting crushed.
Crushed, right.
And that came out fine.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is a new product. Should we make namkeen chiudas? Namkeen laddus.
Right.
I gave it a thought, like a year. This is 2016.
Okay.
2017, I realized nobody is going to eat ladus like this, because laddu is a laddu. It's again
Right.
a traditional thing. If I'm going to change the profile from sweet to savory, that's
Right.
not going to work.
Right.
What will work? Let's make a bar out of it. So we started making a bar out of it. How do we bind it together? Because that time the idea was just to bind, but
Right.
it was a sugar syrup based binder. So the spicy chiuda became a sweet chiuda.
Sweet chiuda, right.
But that was not how people would consume chiuda, because chiuda or farsan or any of these namkeen mixtures have to be spicy and crunchy. So then we started putting in R&D for non-tasty binders.
Okay.
So we found a company in Germany that does that.
Okay.
I went there. We saw what they were doing. We talked about what we are doing. We signed the MOU, we actually started working towards it. Then we got one person in our R&D whose job was only to make bars. So now this person started working, he analyzed all what we have in the namkeen range. We have 30 products, okay, bring 30 products. Make sure all those 30 products get formed into a bar. Make sure the binding happens very well. And make sure they are tasteless, yet they are crunchy.
Okay.
So then we realized that, so when we probably need to change the way it's being cooked. Because the frying of what a chiuda would be, a bar to hold its structure together after a binder has been added, needs a different structure. So that's when the R&D started realizing that, we are reaching close, but now if we want to do this, we need to go into a commercialization and a project planning stage. So that's when the production and the project planning team got involved. We started talking with the big boys that, in a lab plant we can do 25 bars a minute. Let's see what we can do about this. Now we do 1100 bars a minute.
That is a 50x increase, right?
So eventually that came into picture where, we can make it. Now how do we pack 1000 bars a minute? Because normal machines do 200 bars a minute of packing. So, okay, let's see what the biscuit industry is doing. So we started studying them, got a consultant from that side, plugged him into our project with the NDA and everything. They helped us that saying that, you are handling the product in a different manner, you need to change that. So if you want to change that, you probably have to change the recipe again, because otherwise it's getting broken. So we worked on that. Finally we had a system that's now packing. And then we started working on, so once the packet was ready, the form factor was ready, the weight was ready, our legal team started working on the regulations, the numbers, the compliances. While doing that, there was a front design team that was working on how to package this, what to name it, what to be the outer carton, what would be the advertising campaign, what would be the media collaterals. And when all of this started actually coming in as a big picture, we realized that, it's going to be an expensive project. So how much bar do we need to sell to actually recover this cost, and how much time? So that way we had realized that, we need to sell about
these many bars a month to actually just break even. And until unless we cross this threshold, we are not breaking even. So forget profit. So we probably need a sales team for that. So with sales team, we realized that our current distributors don't do a 10 rupee product. They do 60 rupees products. So okay, let's raise the distributors list which do only 10 rupee, 20 rupee distributors. So we started building that. So eventually what started here, started going this way. And similarly at the back end, we had to start developing our supply, where the chuda needed to come, the namkeen mixture needed to come. So that way we had to put in automatic fryers for making the chuda that actually became a bar. So while doing that, the raw material needed to come. So the standardization of the raw material had to come. The vendors had to be developed to supply all of that. So that way this chain started expanding, and it's actually say a 2-year window when the product actually comes into the market from all of this. But that's when you change the dynamics, and that's what we are doing right now. And it's being consumed at a weekly level. We are showing a growth. So we are fairly confident that whatever we've put into the market, it's a product market fit.
Right, and I mean, this entire process that you told me, it kind of reminded me of one picture I had seen that like there is a 16-lane expressway that gets funneled into 2 or 3 toll. There are only 2 or 3 toll booths. So 16 lanes have to now converge into a 2-lane expressway. And that kind of reminded me of this, that for you to achieve that goal of selling a product in one store, you had to take 16 or maybe 160 routes, 160 paths before which, finally before
lots
you
could. Lots of dead ends.
Right. Lots of dead ends, lots of.
It's not always the expressway, I would say.
Right. And the one point which I noticed in this is that all of this began because of one happy accident where you tried to make chuda ladu from your ladu machine. So it's, how does it feel? I'm going a bit off script, but how does it feel that a product which you are now selling and showing and having so much confidence in was actually a part of a happy accident? Like, do you ever think that what if you had not experimented with that chuda in that ladu machine that one fine day?
So I would say that is where probably the engineer in me gets going, and that is where the culture of our company helps me keep going. So I could do this because I was never discouraged from doing this.
Okay.
And that was something that is as a culture built into our company since my great grandfather's time, where challenging the status quo is never a question. So it's a mix of both, and it feels great. But what feels really great is that we had a platform out of which we were able to build something as our generation.
Right, and you mentioned you were always encouraged in challenging the status quo because that was the only way you could bring in an element of innovation to your way of doing business. Now, if I would throw some light upon the manufacturing side of things, can you give me some examples of innovations that the business has carried out that has forced other players in the same industry to rethink their strategy?
We were the first company in the country to actually launch milk in pouches, even before our biggest competitor in the country did. So that itself was a game changing, because till then milk came in glass pouches.
Right.
We started making bakarwadi in around the late 70s, and that we automated, where we used to do about 300 kgs a day to 300 kgs an hour. And now we do by the end of this year, we'll be about 2000 kgs an hour. We adopted packaging. We started doing laddus on machines, completely automated. We make Kaju Katli without a hand touch, where even the robots do the filling job. Burfis are made in an automated manner. Packaging of mithai itself was something that we never did. Shrikhand we do at such a fast speed. It is blistering fast. We can't see the packets. So you have to build things that way, where you build and achieve that scale in a very short amount of time, because that is how you start getting a lion's chunk of the market share. So country like ours, you can't really have a dominant 90% market share in most things, because always keep getting disrupted. But can you have a dominant market share? That is what I try to aim for.
And the same question from a technological side of things. Now, you were notable, I remember as a kid going into your shops, that you used to have that magnetic card entry, which was very new at a time, and that was one of the identifiable aspects of your shops. Now I can say that it was an innovation at the time. Now, how do such innovations help in better engagement and revenue in the current situation, current market? And can you give me some examples of innovation in technology that have been pioneered by Chitales?
So look at this in this way. There's no rocket science in the magnetic chip or the RFID technology that we use in the store. It's just that we are engineered to be a social enterprise where we make sure that we value the ecosystem we are in. So most retailers don't adopt that because they don't pay 100% taxes. We as an organization pay more taxes than necessary at times and then get rebates about it. But we will never pay less. So the idea is never to cheat the system. It's either rather to support the system and make sure that it gets distributed back. So if that is to be done, we have to control the pilferages, the theft as well. So how do we control that? You can't trust people for that because it's food. They are eating just like we are right now. So let's put a system in place. That's how that system came into the picture. And that's how we started tracking what's happening internally to stop leakages. Because we wanted to be 100% compliant with what was expected. And that, while doing so, proved to be a value addition to the consumer because they were out of the store in under a minute. Where you go to any store in this country, you will probably be spending 10 minutes waiting in the line. That's just a colossal waste of time, I feel. So, where should the customer be spending time in your stores? Is it seeing products or is it waiting at the billing counter? And that's where we created value. Same thing goes back in where there are so many cows that give milk to us that are with the help of cloud computing and RFID actually on our cloud, where we actually monitor their health, we monitor their cycles, we monitor their dealing activities, and we inform the farmer on how to keep that animal healthy. The cloud computing is just ensuring the farmer gets the right output from the animal, and that's actually great ROI for them. So if the farmer is happy, the animals are happy. The animals are giving they are giving the right amount of milk. If the milk is coming out on the right value, there is a less risk of adulteration. There is less adulteration, the quality of milk coming into our factory is good. That means we can be more careful, we can be more bullish about what we are making. So that means our raw material, which is koa, which makes mithai, is of much better quality than the market. So our mithai is good, and that's how the cascading effect comes. So our customer keeps buying that. There's always a chain.
So if you innovate at the origin point, you are less worried about the quality of the product that you end up manufacturing and selling.
Correct.
Right.
It's like a driving license test, right?
Right.
Do you want to put a guy who's never been tested to drive a car, or somebody who's tested? Forget the rules in India. Globally, they are much better, but that's why there are less morons on the road. But that's exactly what you will do, because there's no self-governance mechanism, right? You have to put a system in place where governance happens because of the system,
right,
not because of the people. And that is what India needs to move to.
Right. Now I'll talk about. Now you mentioned that you have such a vast process of conceptualization to finally putting a product on the shelf. You must have had other avenues, other opportunities as well in this business. Now, have you ever had a situation where an opportunity in the business was very, very convenient to you and it was easy picking for you, but you had to decline it because it did not fit your vision, your outlook, or as you mentioned before, your mission to have a good social impact?
So that's how Binge Bar got created. So when we started doing a distribution chain business, we realized that we did not have a product which catered to the 10 rupee category product, which is like the 90% of the share of Indian retail. If we wanted to make our product competitive at 10 rupee, all we needed to do was an easy thing, was change the oil we were using. We use groundnut refined oil for every product that we fry. And that's trans fat free, great profile of fats. And it's like touted as the Indian version of olive oil. It's the good oil that you would want to have. But it's good, that's why it's expensive. Whole of the market uses palm oil. We make everything in palm oil. It's loaded with trans fat. It's not the healthiest one. And that's why it's at 10 rupees. So we could have just changed our oil, matched the price at 10 rupees and done a Me Too product and probably got away with it. Nobody would have complained. But that's not the Chitale way of doing things. So you're like, we are not going to copy that. Until unless we find that, we are not doing it. We let the opportunity go for almost 3-4 years. And since we couldn't do it, that is where the spirit of innovation came in. Kaitari karal paye. And we are losing that market otherwise. So that's how we tried innovating. Let's try this, let's try that, let's do this, let's keep figuring this out. That is how Binge Bar was created. And it fit. So then when it actually started materializing, the internal price point fix was let's keep it at 10 rupee product. So then the engineering of it happened in that.
You had to reverse engineer your way. I mean, your starting point was the price point.
How do we fit the weight? How do we fit the packet? What is the cost of it? So, and while doing that, we are still frying the product in groundnut refined oil. So it's not like we are giving a bad product. So that's why it's so much healthier at that price point than anything else in the market.
Yeah, so not cutting corners at the points where it matters the most. Even if it is an opportunity which you had to let go for a brief amount of time.
Because you can't focus on immediate turnovers, right? You have to focus on value. Value is that sustains.
Right.
So we have to build value.
Right. And I've seen the package of Binge Bar. It's not the traditional Chitale packaging, if I would go about and say it doesn't have your it's not multicolored. It actually has, I think, 2 colors only. One is the color of the flavor and black. Now, good packaging like that is always essential for any business, and it is proven that it has a hand in increasing sales. Like, the quality of packaging can extend the shelf life. Now, does it impact the public perception of the quality of the product if the packaging is, let's say, subpar or not at par the way you want it?
So all of this will be sold in a non-controlled avenue, right? Pan Patti is going to have this product. While going there, consumer is going to see your packet and make a choice. Oh, this packet seems attractive. Should I just check it? Doesn't seem attractive. I will not even touch it. So it's a make or break situation. So if you are not doing the right kind of packaging, you are never going to get that right kind of attention. So that is the first step towards getting noticed. And that the idea behind designing that packaging itself was with the same brief that, let's make something that appeals globally to the young people and something that has not been done before, because the product is also something that has not been done before. And today we exported Binge Bar to Hong Kong, yesterday to Singapore. So I think in a week's time we will export it to the US as well. So that way, what we want to make, as I said about Indian food, so this is a traditionally Indian product, but it is a very, very westernized form factor. And this is something that we can definitely get onto the shelves in any of the US supermarkets or British supermarket or Australian supermarket. And people there would not be hesitant to try it because the name is not traditionally Indian or written in Devanagari.
Right.
So this is the whole philosophy of making Indian food globally accessible. So what do we preserve? We preserve the flavors, we preserve the tradition, we preserve the value of it. What can we let go? Probably we can let go the language, because if we are writing in Devanagari, an Australian is not going to understand that. So why not make it just globally appealing and make a uniform language? And that's what we aim. So the idea was that a product like Pringles or Lay's is sold in 190 countries. Why is that so? Because they just do something that is globally appealing. They have localized flavors and they have international flavors. So we studied a lot of that, and then we've reached what we want to do with this.
And if I talk now, keeping Binge Bars to the side and now talking more about the traditional mithai side of your business, do you think that currently there is a changing public perception towards indulgent food? And if so, how do you think the future of nutrition would be affected by it?
So there is a big distinction between what is nutrition and what is indulgent food. So unfortunately, we as a country are heavily influenced by Western cultures. So we are eating bakery things which are having a lot of saturated fats, which are having a lot of vegetable fats, and yet baked products are considered healthy. Then what would be traditional Indian products which are made from Indian dairy products? So the dairy is been part of Indian culture since as long as the culture exists, and they have suited our DNA for a certain reason. So now it's simply about the fact that it doesn't appear cool enough why urban audience wants to shift to something else. But that means that our competition as a traditional food manufacturer is not simply the other mithai store or other namkeen store. It's the bakery store across the street. It's the donut store across the street. It's the chocolate store across the kirana store as well. And all of them are competing.
Right.
So, what would you say? Is a chocolate healthier or a mithai healthier? well, probably don't know the answer, but if you see the facts behind, mithai is healthier because you're actually getting good protein.
The lesser of the two devils, you can say.
But then it's not glamorized enough, and you feel cool gifting a chocolate, you don't feel cool gifting a mithai. So we as an industry need to elevate ourselves to match that international standards in terms of the packaging, the concept, the presentation. While doing that, highlighted we are actually healthier. There's nothing wrong in embracing our tradition, which is, I think, you asked me about that.
Right.
What do you want to do about tradition? So let's try to celebrate tradition, but evolve it in a manner which is acceptable to the society today, but not dilute.
Right. And you mentioned that Indians are being affected by Western concepts and Western health trends, so to speak. Now, the shift is happening towards more ketogenic, more vegan friendly, more sugar free products. And to talk about a venture that you have started, it's called M Square, if I'm not wrong, a healthy alternative to all the usual products that you sell. I think you have a couple of 3-4 products right now in that range. I've seen the hoarding outside one of your shops. Now, what made you work? How did you come up with this? Was it the same inspiration that you wanted to evolve mithai into into a westernized concept with embracing the tradition, or was it anything else?
So, I would like to go look beyond the fats. Okay? But diabetes is going to be a big problem in our country. It already is. It's going to have 50% of our population by the end of this decade will be diabetic. Heart disease is a big problem. 40% people in this country die of lifestyle diseases. That's heart disease. Along with that, lactose intolerance is becoming a big problem. And all of these problems are man-made problems. They are either genetically inherited or they are something that you create because of your lifestyle. But the way our lifestyle is evolving, we don't have time for active life. So unlike say our grandparents' time where they used to cycle to work or work hard in the fields where they had that ability to digest the nutrition that they were doing, nutrition has not progressed with the manner in which mankind has changed their lifestyle. So that way these problems are coming in and we need to create solutions for these problems. So I would overlook the faddism behind it that I am cool because I am doing this diet, I am cool because I am following this person's diet, or I am cool because this famous cricketer or this famous actress is doing this diet. Well, all of that is just faddism. It's not sustainable. And beyond that, do you not really know what is happening beyond the social media? You don't know. So how do we create value? That is where we try to build this that, okay, you don't want to eat sugars, fine. There is a philosophy that prevents you from eating sugars, okay, you still have an option. You have a genuine lactose intolerance that's built in for generations, fine, you don't want to eat anything that is having lactose, we have an option for you. You want to eat healthy food which you are on a diet like keto, where it's just about loading proteins and fat, where we have an option. So every type of food consumption option that is there, we have an option which is actually providing value.
So even if you don't necessarily agree with the philosophy that the consumers follow, you are willing to provide an option to them? Can I say that?
So I wouldn't say it's, as I said, the philosophy is something that I do not challenge.
Okay.
The faddism is something that I challenge.
Okay.
Philosophy comes with a belief and a thought process. So there's absolutely no way that can be challenged. Whether it's right or wrong is a different story.
Right.
But there is a reason to it. A person reaches a conclusion because of it. But with social media, people just follow fads, and that is a very wrong thing. So that's not something that we want to cater to.
Makes sense. Faddism, especially now with people being at home for 2 years and only consuming media, it has become something like a daily routine for them to be influenced by so many things that are put in front of them.
Just check about a decade ago when I was in college, and that time eating fats was considered to be a bad thing. We were programmed by our gym trainers and everybody around, don't eat fats, eat only protein, eat butter chicken, eat tandoori chicken, whatever it is. You never realize tandoori chicken also has so much sugar.
Yep.
Or butter chicken has so much salt, sugar and other fats also added to it, which are probably not healthy in the way of thickening agent. Authentic hotels might be doing it right. But then we never thought of it. Now 10 years later, everybody is saying, oh no, fats are very essential because that is exactly what is actually building your body to sustain many things and fight infections also. So fats with protein is actually the right thing, and now everybody's saying carbs are bad. That time
Carbs are
everybody
bad.
was like, eat carbs, no problem. Do cardio and eat carbs.
Right.
So these are fads. If you see the times in the evolution of mankind, when the hunter-gatherer stage was there, eating everything was okay because the hunter had to work hard to hunt something and then eat.
Right.
So they needed that kind of muscle, they needed that kind of muscular endurance, they needed hemoglobin, they needed that kind of fats also. And they wouldn't know when their next hunt would be, so fat reserves were necessary. Now that has evolved. So has the diet evolved with the way mankind's lifestyle has evolved? So that is where the disparity exists. That is where we can create value.
Right. Now coming back to M Square, like I said, it is an healthier alternative to the usual products that you sell. Now, do you see a future where you would want M Square to be on the same lines monetarily as your usual products are? And if so, do you think that there is a risk that that M Square will cannibalize the other products out there which you are selling traditionally for so long?
So whether it will be the same size, it's too early to say. I still believe that this is a very urbanic phenomenon. The rural people are probably healthier and they are not needing this at all. So we very often in our country tend to overlook what the rural ecosystem of this country is, which is 40-50% of our population still. So beyond them, there will be a point. But whether it will cannibalize, I don't agree on that. I would rather say that this is a well-controlled cannibalism. Because if we don't provide that option, somebody else is going to take our customer away. So whom do you want to retain? Do you want to retain the product or do you want to retain the customer? Your product is of no use if the customer is not buying. So create avenues for the customer and that focus on customer is necessary. Whenever the customer wants to shift or whatever choice, fad, preference, necessity that customer has, we as a food company should cater to that. And that is why we want to be a food company, not a FMCG player or something that you were asking me about.
Right. And like you said, irrespective of the customer's point of view, you will always be there with an option available for them. Now, I'll bring in a topic which I'll not say an ardent believer, but I'm a subdued follower, which is minimalism and a minimalistic lifestyle or a minimalistic thought. So, do you believe in minimalism first of all, and do you want to or do you like implementing it in your brand, in your business, wherever possible?
It's very relative.
I'm sorry?
It's very relative.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. There is an absolute term that could be termed as minimalistic. So you are probably more minimalistic than I am. But I am less. I am a lot more minimalistic than somebody more, Maximus in there.
Right.
So it's so relative that if you try to generalize that, then that's going to be very difficult and just polarize too many things. So to each his own, whatever floats their boat. I think we want to fill what we'll try to preserve is create value.
Right.
If we are creating value, I think we eventually end up being minimalist because we're never bloated with value.
Right.
That's not value, then that's something wrong.
Right. This question actually came up because when I was checking out the packaging of Binge Bar, the one thing which struck me was the use of only 2 colors. So that was why my angle was that. While branding Binge Bars, was minimalism just a coincidental phenomenon, or did you?
It was a deliberate effort.
Okay.
Because it was appealing to people your age.
Okay.
So Binge Bar was meant with an idea and a campaign that it appeals to the younger set of people who are in their teens or their 20s. And what appeals to them is what we have to focus. Because the 30-year-old guy is already our customer. The 40-year-old person is already our customer. Current 20s who will start spending, we want them to be our customers. So how do we appeal to them? So that is where that came into picture. So we engineered that into design.
Right. Now I'll shift the attention from the business, from the products, from the branding, and bring it more to the people behind the entire driving force that is Chitale. Now, when you hire someone in your company, now I'll start from the top at an executive or an authoritative position. What are some of the essential qualities that you think that individual should have, which are a must, and if they don't have it, it's a deal breaker for you?
So one thing is the ability to see long term. I don't like working with people who are short terms or short sighted in their approach. because they don't create value. They create disruption, but then that disruption is very bad in this long run. So, can a person match my horizon, or at least be part enough of my horizon where they do their job very well? And while doing that, understand the social impact that businesses do in our country. So, it's not like the US, right, where it's about just filthy capitalism. It's about conscious capitalism in our country. And as I said, if you're not creating value across our supply chain, we are never going to be a successful business because people around us will not support us. So these value systems are something that I would like to see match with people who we hire or who want to work with us. If say a couple of these value things are something that these people try to understand or at least are oriented towards it or sensitized about it, then I would overcome one bad aspect about them to prefer that. Because they will not dilute the identity of the company. Because when these professionals are coming with authority and power, they are going to be the representatives of the company. What do you want the company to be known for is an important factor, and that is what they understand well.
Right, and I feel it is extremely vital for you to ensure that the ideologies and philosophies match in a way that ensure synergy. I mean, you will be able to extract the synergies from them, and they will also be able to extract the synergies from you and
Correct.
grow together, so to speak.
Very true.
Now, if you have a commitment to consistency and quality, which is the reason why you're entering the fourth generation of business. How do you ensure that this commitment at the same or even a higher level gets incorporated in your workers and in your employees?
Well, one thing is that we need to keep a rapport with them. We need to keep communicating what we stand for. And we need to create that sense of satisfaction in them about what they are doing is actually adding value. So when all of these things start aligning to what the organization wishes to do, then people keep preserving those things. So that first starts with walking the talk. So if I'm saying something, if I'm going to scold an employee for throwing something on the floor and coming out of the production hall, I'm going to do the same thing. Then me telling that employee is of no use because I have not followed what I have preached. So we need to set example by our actions, and if that is something that we keep doing every day, where say my grandfather used to tell me that the leadership is a lifestyle. It can't be something that you stop after you're out of office. That is what professionals do. That's not what leaders do. So if you are able to do that and build that into your life, program that into your life and refine over a period of time, because it will keep evolving, I think decently enough people will be motivated towards the bigger goal, the bigger picture.
And it will be a situation where, like I mentioned, with the executives, even with the workers and the employees, you will grow together. Now in Marathi there is this one saying, Ekmekas sahaya karu avge dharu supanta. Now if I apply this thought to your suppliers who have been with you in business for generations, did you realize a point where as you grew in stature, as you grew in business, in size, in all aspects, the suppliers also grew not just monetarily, but they also redefined their brand equity, their professionalism and their outlook towards doing business?
Few did. And who started looking beyond us also. And that is the right thing to do. Some were just content with what growth we were doing and we were giving them to. So then they didn't bother. So while I have immense respect for everybody and everybody has been a pivotal part of our success, I have more admiration for people who used our platform, stabilized and built something bigger out of it beyond our ecosystem. Because that's when they're creating value for themselves. So we have to help others thrive.
Right, and I read this quote somewhere that a good mentor expects you to move on and grow, but a great mentor knows that you will move on and grow. So I mean, the suppliers and you might have had a mentor-mentee relationship at a point of time when you would want to go in a direction and you would want to take those suppliers with you as well. And it's great to see that you have admiration for those who used you as a launch pad for enhancing their own value.
Yeah, I mean, I never knew of this quote, but then it makes all the sense because we have to build entrepreneurship, not just suppliers. So we just don't look at them as suppliers, we look at them as auxiliary partners.
Right.
So, because they do a very pivotal job. And our assembly is dependent on their supply.
Right. Finally, I'll bring the attention to you and your family. Now, first about you. You're a partner in a business which we have mentioned is spanning multiple generations. I mentioned at the beginning you are part of a startup and you also actively invest in startups. So it's safe to say that you have viewed entrepreneurship from three angles: as a businessman, as a startup founder, and as an investor. What can you say are some of the learnings that these three roles have taught you?
Well, when I look at the traditional business setup, which I inherited, what it taught me was that nothing's built overnight. Takes time, takes generations, and what you preserve is something that you have to keep pondering upon. Because needs will change, values will not, and that is what we have to understand. While doing that, when we are investing, we need to see that are they creating value. If they are creating value, then that is an investment that will stand the test of time. If they are just creating disruption for the sake of it, which I see around right now, it's just not good enough to be invested into. For me, there are people who thrive on these disruptions, so that doesn't appeal to me. And again, when I'm trying to run my own startup and which we recently got funded, uh, I would want to be funded on the basis of the merit of the product and the startup that we are doing. Not simply because everybody is thinking this territory is hot and I want to bloated valuation. So I'm fine letting go valuation if I'm getting the right partners. I'm fine being pragmatic about the market and not just considering that, oh, I'm a self-made multi-millionaire because of my startup valuation now. Well, I'm fine rather creating value. If I create that, I will remain a multi-millionaire or become a billionaire in the time to come, rather than just a few days of being a multi-millionaire.
You would want to play the long game rather than a short.
Yeah.
So it's a test match as compared to a T20. You would always want to play a test match of, you would want to play a test series of 5 matches.
So life is a test match, right? It's a test. If you're thinking that if you pass a goalpost and that means that now your set doesn't happen. So even on the best possible day there is Duckworth Lewis to screw you up. So similarly, that way every innings has its own share of controversy and challenges and difficult reputations that you have to deal with. You have to build the innings over a period of time and actually stabilize. So that is what I love about Test cricket, and it's a long Test match that we have to play. Like having an Aussie lineup on a English wicket with no helmet batting.
That is a very long play.
Yeah.
Now, as a family business, as it grows and gets passed on from generation to generation, the motivation to be successful and not just survive but thrive must be sky high. And you mentioned in our initial meet that a very small percentage of businesses actually enter into a 4th generation.
Yeah.
And you have an ambition of pushing it to maybe even a 5th or a 6th generation. Now, how do you ensure that this business, when it gets passed on from generation to generation, it functions like a well-oiled machine and it is extremely seamless? I mean, do you have clear demarcations or division of responsibilities? How do you?
So it's a work in progress, right? Yeah. And the two things that I probably coined or I have simulated from things other people have coined. But power is always seized and peace is always brokered. So if you want to be in power, you have to work. It's never given to you, and just because it's given to you doesn't mean that you can retain that power. You have to keep working towards controlling that power. And if you want to keep peace where progress happens, you have to be prepared to go to war at times. So you will not have peace without some. So imagine a country, right? So we might like the leadership that is in power, or we might not like the leadership in power. But then that leadership is actually ensuring that people are there at the borders protecting us from neighboring countries or foreign threats. But they are doing their job. That's why we can do business. So that's why all of this needs to coexist and keep unfolding as time progresses and keep revisiting in terms of what is relevant out of this. And when that keeps happening, things usually will survive the generation. I think it is too early in my career to say what I build will survive in the how long it will survive. But it is my responsibility to ensure that I build something that survives at least the next 3 generations that I can probably get to see in my lifetime.
And I mean, we are reaching towards the end of our episode, but I'll ask this one cliche question, which I'm very sure you are asked in all the interviews that you do. Like, what would be your advice to my generation?
Well, one thing is that we need to challenge the structure of democracy in our country in a manner where that democracy becomes productive for the country. We are still in a manner where the bureaucracy is from a British era and their design is to control, not to cohabitate. Because the British wanted to control our country. They did not really want to have freedom for us. And that is what we've learned from our last 2 lockdowns and probably staring at a lockdown next week. That the bureaucracy is screwed it up for our country. Whatever they manage later and all of that doesn't matter. Because these guys don't really know how to run businesses. They are just protecting their jobs. And that is not going to solve this country's problem. So we need to have more active people having a say in how this country progresses in the time to come. And that is where I have high hopes in our Prime Minister, because he is actually doing something remarkable. And I have high hopes also in the limited bureaucracy that is aiming for this change or gearing up for this change. So we need to be in part of this system to start questioning this and actually changing the status quo. So if we want to be part of the system, we need to be aware about what's happening. And when we look at what's happening, very often now because of social media and all the technology around us, the disparity or the distance between what's the reality, between say what's 30 miles out of Pune and what's in Pune is so stark and so heavy in contrast and so absent for somebody to consider in a city life that it's difficult. But we need to ensure that whatever reforms happen, whatever progress happens, whatever impact we try to do, it needs to reach the last mile. And when that last mile also elevates, that is when the country progresses, and that is when we actually have a population that starts thinking also. Because currently they are just doing primary jobs. They will start doing industrial jobs eventually, and that's a big chunk of the population. So let's try to ensure that when we are challenging status quo, we're not disrupting the system, we are actually progressing the system. So progress or disruption for the cost of progress is great. Disruption for the sake of disruption is not great. So we need to understand that, and it needs to be democratic than what it is today.
That is a very crucial piece of advice which would be helpful probably for our generation and the generations to come. Now, before I let you go, you mentioned to me that you're a bike enthusiast. Any chance we will see a Chitale branded, Chitale partnership with a bike just because you like doing it and just because a spin-off into the multiverse of different businesses?
I don't mind thinking of making a bike that can ride on Mars or Moon. I think that was something that I don't mind investing into. That would be fun. But your generation, I don't think so you guys are keen on buying automotives at all. You would rather Uber yourself. So, the preference towards car as a status symbol or an achievement symbol is gone. My generation had it probably where we would be keen on buying new cars or buying something for ourselves or establishing ourselves with the car, which was a statement. Now it's a statement of something different, and that's not relatable towards today's society. So it doesn't make sense. I don't see any value coming in from the auto sector anymore. And the way electrification is coming up now, the Mercedes-Benz and cheap Chinese prototype all can have the same level of battery capacity.
Right.
So what is going to be the specialty of automotives in the time to come? So this disruption is crazy, and I wouldn't want to be involved in that kind of era where I can't create value.
So you will happily be a consumer but not be an investor right now.
I'm happy being a consumer. I have no qualms about it, but I'll never invest into it.
So with that, we have reached the conclusion of this episode. Thank you, Dada, so much for being such a great guest, and it's my honor to have you on. It's my honor to have you on because, like I said initially, that this project of mine is just a couple of episodes old, and you agreeing to come on is a great achievement. for me. So thank you once again for
It's
taking
my
it.
pleasure.
Right, so to all the listeners who have made it so far, please do consider subscribing, following, leaving a like, a comment. Any and every bit of feedback is always welcome. Thank you so much for listening. I am your host Rohan, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Stay safe.